Hi everyone, it's Eliana, and I have a cute little Christmas ornament to share with you today. I will be using mostly Lawn Fawn products. I'm starting off with the Toboggan Together stamp set, and I selected the little penguin in the stamp set because it needs to be identical on the other side because the snow globe is going to be completely see-through. And I'm just stamping it with my MISTI, and I'm using black onyx ink. And what I usually do is I just use a scratch piece of cardstock, and then I just rotate the image so that I don't have to unmount my stamp from where it is. And I'm going to be embossing it with some clear embossing powder because I want to color it in. Typically I emboss it after I'm done coloring, but I'm going to be using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and I want that embossing powder, the embossing, to be kind of a barrier for my watercoloring. And I bought these markers a while back, and I just kind of think they're okay. Probably because I haven't had a chance to really play with them and experiment and get to know the markers. I'm not as comfortable with them as I am with the Copic markers. But even then, when I first started using the Copic markers, I did think that they were a little bit harder. But I think it's just going to take some practice. So now I've colored them in, and I am just going to use the matching dies with the stamp set to cut them out. I didn't do so well with the dies cutting them out. It shifted in my Big Shot, even though I'd used a little bit of post-it tape. It still managed to shift, and I think it probably was that I didn't have the tape on there well enough, and the magnet on the Big Shot caused it to move just a little bit, but it's a little snow ornament, so I don't think it's going to matter. Now I'm taking the little tree that comes in the stamp set, and I'm using the freshly cut grass ink color to create my little trees. And I once again just put the stamp on the MISTI, and I'm just rotating my cardstock. That way, if I wanted to go back and put clear embossing powder on it, I could, because the stamp hasn't moved. So I like doing that. I'm also taking some noble fir, and I'm trying to create a little bit of dimension, and it didn't really turn out so well, so I just decided to just restamp it again. And because I am just rotating the cardstock, I could keep using this little piece of paper because everything is equally spaced on it, and so as long as you position your stamp on your paper, you could take advantage of the whole piece of cardstock. I hope that makes sense. I try not to waste cardstock at all. Now, this is the paper that I had made before, and I'll be sure to add a link to the description below as to how to make the blue silver paper. And I'd made more, and I was just going to use it to make my snow globe just because I really liked the way that cardstock turned out. Now I'm taking some double-sided adhesive, and I'm adding it to a piece of fun foam, and I've added it to both sides of the fun foam. And it was a little tough cutting it out, and I did have to go back and use an X-Acto knife or a craft knife to trim out the very back of it. But it really wasn't that hard to do because it was a straight line. I didn't mention the die set that I'm using. I'm using both the Ready Set Snow die set and the shaker add-on. And I cut out the snow globe silhouette, I would say, from acetate, from just some transparency. And I tried to use the corner of my MISTI like I normally do to add my card fronts, but because it was an odd shape, it didn't work. So don't even waste your time. So I'm just adding the acetate to one side of the shaker. And you see it didn't work that well. Um, but I still was able to put it on there. I did have to trim a little bit of the acetate that overhung the edge of the foam. But it was clear and it shouldn't matter. I think you could just leave it alone. Now I'm going to add the silver blue paper and I'm just going to use some score tape. I didn't want to use liquid adhesive because I was worried that it would just smush out and it's kind of messy and I didn't want it to get on the acetate. So now that I've got my adhesive on, I'm just going to add it to the front of the snow globe, but I want to add the little piece of silver so that it could hang from a tree. And I did put it on one side and I went back and I changed it so that one piece of the string is on one side and the other piece of the string is on the other side of the snow globe so it would hang better. So here you see it on the same side, but I end up changing it later. Okay, now that I have that little piece of panel attached to the front, I notice that it's overhanging just a little bit, but to be quite honest, it's clear and no one would have noticed it. So I'm going to add the little snowbank to it, but I need to add my penguin and my tree to the front of it, and then I need to do the back side. So I'm just touching up a little bit of the foot there just because I'm just kind of obsessive compulsive that way. So I'm just adding a little bit of ATG adhesive. You could use liquid adhesive if you want, but I didn't want to deal with the mess on the backside since it was hanging off at the time. And then I'll add the tree. The little snowbank that is in the die set, it's not like a mirror image, and so you do need to trim a little bit. And I just used the scratch piece of paper that I had from where I stamped my images. And there's the little snowman. I'm sorry, the little penguin. And now I'm adding the tree to the other side. Now this is where I have to trim a little bit of the snowbank because it's not symmetrical. But it was really easy to do. And now I could add my little scene inside the snow globe. And I'm just removing the adhesive and I'm just adding them in. And I had to cut another piece of the foam so that I could sandwich them in and create more of an area for my little shaker elements to move around. And once that is all assembled, I can just squeeze it together, and you probably want to add a little bit more liquid adhesive where the snowbank touches, just because there's a little bit of a gap, and whatever you put inside the snow globe, it might go inside the little crevice. And I'm just adding some chunky glitter for snow, and I did add way too much, and so what you don't see in the video is where I kind of took it apart and took some of it out. It did create such a mess, just let me tell you that, and I didn't want to put you through the agony of watching that, so I did remove some of that glitter. Now I've added the acetate to the other side and put my snow globe together. Now I wanted to create the little label that goes on the front of the snow globe, and I wanted it to look kind of like it was gold or brassy, and so what I did is that I took some of that gold metallic luster, I'm sorry, it was the Champagne Ice Deco Art Metallic Luster. I found it at Hobby Lobby, and I just used a little finger dauber to spread it around, and it's kind of a waxy consistency. Now when I put my stamps on it, it did get onto my stamp set, and so I had to clean it off. And then I added some black onyx ink to stamp on it. And I had to do it a couple of times just because the surface of the champagne ice metallic luster is kind of slick. And so I had to do it a couple of times. And I am going to emboss it. And you just have to be very careful when you heat it up because that metallic luster is kind of a wax. And so it did bubble up. So you need to make sure that your heat gun is nice and hot and you don't hover over it very much. And I couldn't decide which sentiment to use, and so I just did one of each because I could put one on each side. So I'm just using my tape runner, and this is one of the little dot tape runners. And that would be it. So thanks so much for stopping by and watching this video, and be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I hope you found it useful. Have a great day.